Questionable, the look of these things. Alright guys, we have a new product. This is the LensGo LWM-308C. Now, why is it always these like smaller, cheap Chinese companies, they never actually name their products, like LWM-308C? What is that? Right, so this is a budget wireless lapel system. It retails for about 119 US dollars, I think, which is about 150 Australian dollars, which is pretty cheap. So I'm interested to see how this actually goes. I'm not expecting too much, because it's not much for like a wireless microphone, but you know, I'll keep an open mind and we'll do some testing and we'll see how good it is. Oh, I got the wrong glasses on, no wonder. Guys. Rookie, that's much better. All right, let's do some testing and let's see how well it performs. Right, so firstly in the box, we obviously have a transmitter and a receiver. The range of these is, they say it's about 50 meters line of sight, but we'll do some tests in a little bit and just see if that's true or false, or we'll see what we can actually get with this setup. They both have built-in batteries, and they say the runtime is about 6 hours, which is pretty good. You also get this little cold shoe mount, which is really great for mounting the receiver on your camera. You get these like super weird, like bondage looking cases for them. I think it's so you can clip it onto something, but questionable, the look of these things. You get 2 charging cables to be able to charge obviously both the transmitter and the receiver. A standard 3.5mm audio cable, so this is a TRS cable, but they've also thrown in a TRRS cable as well, which is the one that you need to connect it to your phone, which is really handy. And they also throw in a lapel mic as well, which is really good, but the cable on it is like so long, like that's probably what, like a meter? Like it's just probably more than that, 1.8, so like 1.5 meters is just so big. Now, the first thing to note is that with all these cheaper brands, there's a reason why they're cheap. They have to make sacrifices in certain areas to make it that cheap. First thing I noticed is that the standard 3.5mm cable was not really working. Like it works, but you could not move it in your camera, otherwise you get this real bad crackly sound, which basically just says that it's a damaged cable. So for all the tests you're about to see, I actually just grabbed the cable out of my Lark 150 to use, and that worked absolutely fine. All right, so if we power on the transmitter first, you'll see there's a little screen that pops up under here. It shows you your signal strength, battery life, frequency that you're on. And also when you plug in your lapel, it gives you like a little audio level readout thing, which it seems to be like really low, but like, I don't know, it just seems to be on the lower end, even though when it comes to the receiver, it actually is quite hot. You've got a positive and a minus key here for changing the actual signal, as well as changing the volume, which is really funky. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, it's the way they've set it up is really confusing. And then obviously the mic input here, it has a little belt clip on the back, and that's about it. It's actually quite a simple unit. Now the receiver is pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is that you have a headphone out jack, so if you want to monitor it straight from this device, you can. And it also has just a bigger screen because you can actually get 2 transmitters and transmit it to 1 receiver, which is pretty cool. I haven't been able to test that because I've only got 1 of them, but apart from that, it's pretty much identical. Now, if you're new to wireless lapel mics, then this is going to be a little bit confusing for you, not because it's a wireless lapel system, just this specific ones. Now on the receiver, there are 2 outputs, okay? Which the first one, the headphone out, makes sense. That's for monitoring, okay? The second one has a microphone on it, which typically you would assume would be a mic input, but it's actually the line out that you send to your camera, which is very confusing because if you grab the transmitter, the line in for your lapel is also a microphone. So I'm assuming they've just used like a standard design just to make it cheaper, I guess. But yeah, that got me. Like I've used wireless lapels for ages, but even that stumped me. The next weirdest thing is that if you hold down on the plus or minus on either the transmitter or the receiver, you can set what it says is a volume, but in the manual, it doesn't specifically say what it's doing or which one's doing what. Now, from what I can tell, if you change the volume on the transmitter, that's essentially like a gain for the microphone. So if you have it all the way up 15, it's gonna be the most sensitive. And if you have it all the way down at 1 or 0, it's gonna be the least sensitive. But what's super confusing is that you can also change the volume on the receiver as well. That's not linked to the transmitter. And literally in the manual under output volume adjustment, it has a note and it says, no need to adjust the receiver RX volume setting. So why is there a volume setting on the receiver? And as far as I can tell from my tests on the receiver, I think the volume on the receiver is the headphone out for the monitoring. Oh, it's just so confusing, but. So now having a volume setting or your gain on the transmitter itself means that you have to preset this before you do it. Like you can't adjust that on the receiver in case this is too hot, which is kind of a little bit frustrating. Now there are 30 different channels that you can choose from. If you just short press the positive or the minus button on the transmitter, you can't actually change it on the receiver. It does resync straight away. But the main problem is that if you are running into interference when you're shooting, then you have to then go to the transmitter to change this before you can then start shooting again. But with all that aside, how does it actually sound? And I'll leave that up to you guys. So let's go out and do a range test on this and see just how far we can get with a good signal and how far we can get before it actually starts to break up. Right guys, so I know this isn't the most ideal situation to be testing out a wireless lapel mic in, but it is absolutely bucketing outside and we've got a rain forecast for the next 7 days. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go walk 50 meters. I'm gonna have the lapel facing the camera to start off with, and then I'll turn around and see if we lose connection or not, and then just go from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 38, 49, 50. So basically in line with this B2 column here. So now, let's just double check. Can you guys still hear me? That is the main thing. This is 50 meters. This is the range that it says that it can operate in. It says we've got full reception as well. So how good does that sound? It still says we've got full signal here. I'm not sure how accurate this is. Or not. Now I've turned back around. This is behind me. If I was kind of like walking around like a speaker in a conference, what does this sound like? Can you still hear me? Is it cutting in and out? 9, 10. So this is now 30 meters. The transmitter is behind me, and I'm just kind of like walking around and talking like if I was a speaker at an event. 98, 99, 100. So this is 100 meters away from the receiver and the camera. Still says I've got full reception on this transmitter, so I don't know if this actually ever drops down. Does it ever drop down? All right, head back now. All right guys, now finally, what do I actually think of this? And it's a bit hit and miss. Like the fact that you obviously get the transmitter and the receiver in the box, but you also get that TRS cable and the TRRS cable is really good. Plus you also get a lapel mic. Like for $119, it is pretty good. I haven't really tested anything out in this price range, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. Like for me personally, I would save up my money and get something a little bit more expensive. Something that has a channel scan function that also allows you to control the volume of the transmitter from the receiver itself, and also be able to just like mute wirelessly as well. Like there's a few things in this that have just been left out, which makes sense because it's so cheap. But for me personally, I would save up my money a little bit more and get something a little bit more expensive. But if you are on a shoestring budget and you don't want to spend too much, then I mean, it's not a bad option as well. All right guys, if you did enjoy this review, then consider liking and subscribing. And if you want to find out more about this product or where to buy it, I'll leave some links down below. And as always guys, stay creative and just be you. See ya.